Chosen one, anchor your spirit to what I am about to say right now. That exhaustion you have been carrying this week, not the tired that sleep fixes, the tired that comes from being the one who always holds it together. Silence that noise and lock in. The enemy has been working overtime against you this week for one reason and one reason only. He has seen what gets unlocked the moment you finally stop absorbing and start releasing. It all ends tomorrow. The silence, the tolerance, the invisible war you have been fighting alone. But here is what you need to hear. It is not ending because you finally broke. It is ending because of every moment you chose not to. Think back to that moment this week when someone pushed you past what was reasonable, past what was fair, past what any person should be asked to endure, and you said nothing. You exhaled. You walked away. You absorbed it one more time. You thought that was weakness. You thought maybe if you had stood up, things would have shifted. But you did not know what that restraint was actually doing in the spiritual atmosphere around your life. You did not find this message by accident. The algorithm did not bring you here. God did. This is a divine appointment that was written into your timeline before the foundations of the earth were laid. You are standing at a threshold. Stay until the very last second of this message, because in the next few minutes, I am going to hand you the legal verdict that redefines what your gentleness actually is. I am going to show you the exact moment this week when your restraint signed the enemy's eviction notice. And at the end, I am going to give you a declaration that transforms your kindness from a liability into the most dangerous weapon in any room you walk into. Do not click away. Your future self is begging you to stay, because if you leave now, you will walk back into tomorrow, still believing that being good means being weak. I know what the last 72 hours have felt like. The atmosphere around you has not just been tense, it has been suffocating, like you are carrying a weight that nobody else in the room can see. Maybe you were in a conversation this week where someone diminished you, dismissed what you said, or took credit for something you gave, and you sat there with a response forming in your chest that you swallowed back down. Or maybe you are the person in your family, your circle, your workplace, who everyone leans on because they know you will not collapse. And this week, the leaning got heavier and you felt the ground shifting under you. Or maybe it was quieter than that. Maybe you were alone and you looked at how much you have given, how much you have forgiven, how much you have let go of, and something in you whispered that being this good has cost you more than it was supposed to. You feel like you are suspended in a contradiction. You are the most loving person in every room you enter, and somehow that has made you the most taken for granted. And in this space, the enemy has been whispering a very specific lie. He has been replaying moments from your past, moments when you held your tongue, moments when you extended grace to someone who did not earn it, moments when you walked back into a situation that had already wounded you, and he is telling you that those moments are evidence of your weakness. He is telling you that your kindness is the reason you are not further along. He is telling you that if you were harder, colder, less forgiving, you would be more protected, more respected, more advanced. He is whispering that the nicest people always finish last. But I need you to hear what Scripture actually says about this moment. Proverbs 16:32 says, "Whoever is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and one who rules his spirit than one who takes a city." Listen to the weight of that verdict. Better than the mighty. Ruling your spirit is ranked above the conquest of an entire city. The capacity to absorb, to remain composed, to stay dangerous in silence, that is not weakness assigned to you by a personality that could not fight. That is a superior form of power that most people never develop because the discipline required to hold it is beyond them. The enemy is not tormenting you because you are soft. He is tormenting you because he knows what happens the moment a person with your level of restraint decides that enough is enough. He is not afraid of angry people. Angry people are predictable. Angry people tip their hand, burn their bridges, and hand their power to whoever provoked them. He is terrified of you, composed, patient, watching, holding everything you are capable of behind a face that reveals nothing. The heaviness you feel is not the weight of being overlooked. It is the weight of being loaded. You are not running on empty. You are carrying reserves that have never been deployed because you have been waiting spiritually, instinctively, for the moment that actually matters. You are not the nicest person because you are afraid of conflict. You are the nicest person because you have enough power that you can afford to be. And when you are provoked, truly provoked past the threshold of what your grace can cover, what emerges is not rage. What emerges is clarity, precision, a version of you that the enemy spent all week trying to keep asleep. That moment this week when you swallowed your response, that was not defeat. That was you conserving fuel for a fire that is going to change the direction of everything. You did not disqualify yourself. You did not reset your timeline. You are not in a cycle of being overlooked forever. You are in the final compression before the release. The nicest person in the room is never the weakest person in the room. They are the one who has already decided that you are not worth the full force of what they carry. Until you are. Hit the like button if this message found you at exactly the right moment. Drop a comment below. What is one moment this week where you stayed silent when everything in you wanted to respond, and now you are wondering if that was weakness or the most powerful thing you did? Some messages don't just inform, they activate. If something stirred deep in your spirit just now, you may be ready to receive the Chosen One's blueprint. This sacred guide reveals the 8 divine patterns behind your calling, your suffering, and your destiny. It also comes with the full audiobook, so you can absorb it during prayer, rest, or quiet moments with God. And for those called to speak His truth, you'll also receive Activating Your Prophet Mantle, a powerful bonus ebook for those carrying a prophetic assignment. The link is in the first pinned comment, but only for a limited time. Now let's go deeper into what you really are, because what most people don't understand is that your gentleness was never weakness. It was restraint. And restraint, true restraint, is one of the most violent forms of strength that exists. Think about what it actually takes to hold a raging river inside a channel. The water doesn't stop being powerful simply because it's been given direction. The current doesn't become less fierce simply because banks have been built around it. If anything, the containment makes it more formidable. The river becomes navigable. It becomes purposeful. It carves canyons not through explosion but through sustained, patient, directed force. That is what you have been. That is what you are. A force contained not by weakness but by wisdom. Any animal can attack. Any wounded person can lash out. Any fractured soul can throw the shards of their pain at the people nearest to them. But to hold the full weight of what you're capable of, to feel the surge of that power rise in your chest and choose peace anyway, that requires a level of self-mastery that most human beings will spend their entire lives never developing. And you have been doing that your whole life. Not occasionally, not when it was easy, every day, in every room, in every relationship, in every season where the world gave you every reason to explode, and you chose instead to hold. And somewhere along the way, the world looked at your patience and called it passivity. They looked at your silence and called it submission. They looked at your grace and decided you had no fire. They mistook your discipline for defeat. They confused your stillness with surrender. They saw someone who didn't react and assumed there was nothing inside worth reacting with. That was their mistake. Not a small one, a profound one. A mistake that said far more about their inability to recognize power in a form they weren't familiar with than it ever said about you. And deep down, in a place that doesn't use words, part of you has always known it. Part of you has always known that what they called weakness was the most sophisticated expression of strength you possessed. You just didn't have the language for it yet. Until now. But here's where it goes deeper. The reason you've been so misread isn't just because people project onto what they don't understand. It's because you were trained by your environment, by your pain, by survival itself to keep the most powerful parts of yourself hidden. Think about that for a moment. Really sit with it. You didn't just learn to be kind. You learned to be careful. You learned that showing your full self was dangerous, not in a theoretical way, in a lived, visceral, bone-deep way. Not because you were weak, but because early in your life, when you were fully yourself, fully expressive, fully present, fully alive, something happened. Someone looked at the brightness in you and flinched. Someone encountered the depth of what you carried and decided it was too much. Someone made it unsafe to be all of what you were, and so a decision was made, not consciously, not with words, but in the quiet architecture of your survival, that the fire needed a cover. And so you built one. Layer by careful layer, you constructed a covering over the flame. You kept it warm but contained. You kept it alive but invisible. You became the person who could walk into any room, hold the peace, absorb the tension, carry the weight, and never let anyone see how deeply everything actually moves you. You became fluent in the language of calm, while internally you were translating entire storms. You learned to smile through things that should have made you weep. You learned to speak evenly about things that cut you to the core. You learned to make space for everyone else's fire while carefully smothering your own. And that covering protected you then. It was not a failure. It was not weakness. It was the most intelligent response available to a person in your circumstances. But the season that required that covering has passed. And what protected you then has been suffocating you now. The same walls that kept the fire safe have begun to starve it of oxygen, and the soul knows when it is running out of air. And this leads us to something most people miss entirely. That fire you've been containing, it was never meant to stay hidden. It was meant to be directed. There is a profound difference between suppressing your power and mastering it. And it is a difference that will change the entire trajectory of your life once you understand it fully. Suppression says, "I can't let this out." It treats the fire like a threat. It builds thicker walls, heavier locks, deeper vaults. It exhausts itself in the constant work of containment. It is reactive. It is rooted in fear. Mastery, on the other hand, says something entirely different. Mastery says, "I choose when, where, and how this moves." It treats the fire like the sacred resource it is. It doesn't fear the flame. It learns its nature, studies its hunger, understands its rhythm, and then channels it with precision. Mastery is the difference between a wildfire and a forge. Both are powered by flame, but one destroys indiscriminately while the other transforms deliberately. You have been suppressing, and suppression always costs more than it saves. It costs you energy, the constant, invisible tax of keeping something this powerful under wraps. It costs you clarity, because when part of your mind is permanently assigned to managing the containment, the rest of your thinking becomes muffled, slow, distorted. It costs you the kind of relationships where you're actually fully known, because you've been protecting people from the version of you that's too intense, too perceptive, too uncompromising once you've made up your mind. You've been loving people with a filtered version of yourself, and then quietly aching because the intimacy never reaches the depth you know is possible. But that ache is not evidence of your deficiency. It's evidence of your hunger for something real. And that version of you that you've been protecting people from, the version that sees through pretense, that holds the line, that knows what it knows and will not be argued out of it, that version of you is not too much. That version of you is the truth. Coming up, the hidden agreement you made in silence that has been the real ceiling on your life. Stay with me, because this is the part that breaks the cycle. Consider Moses. Here was a man who spent 40 years in the wilderness, not because God had forgotten him, but because the fire in him needed a different kind of shaping before it could be trusted with a nation. Moses didn't lack courage, he lacked direction. He didn't lack passion, he lacked patience. He didn't lack a sense of justice. In fact, his first act of rebellion was against injustice, watching an Egyptian taskmaster brutalize a Hebrew slave and finding inside himself an outrage he could not contain. His first expression of that inner fire got a man killed and sent Moses running into the desert, looking over his shoulder, certain his story was finished before it had truly begun. Not because the fire was wrong, but because it was unrefined. The cause was righteous, the timing was premature, the power was real, the vessel was not yet ready to hold it. And so God took him to the backside of the wilderness, to a place with no audience, no reputation to maintain, no position to protect, and he put him in the simplest of assignments, shepherding another man's flock on dusty, unremarkable ground for 40 years. 4 decades. Think about what that felt like for a man who had been educated in all the wisdom of Egypt, who had grown up in Pharaoh's palace, who had known luxury and power and influence from birth. Now tending sheep in obscurity, now anonymous, now forgotten, as far as the world was concerned. Can you imagine the nights in that wilderness, the wrestling with what felt like a wasted life, the questions that must have risen like smoke in the dark, the wondering whether the fire in him was a delusion, whether the sense of calling was a lie, whether the God of his fathers had any idea where he was. But God knew exactly where he was. And 40 years later, standing before a burning bush that was not consumed, a fire that burned but did not destroy, God essentially said, "Now you're ready. Now the fire in you matches the fire I'm about to put through you." The burning bush was not just a miracle, it was a mirror. God was showing Moses a picture of what he had become, a thing that could hold fire without being consumed by it, a vessel refined enough to carry the weight of an entire nation's liberation without cracking under the pressure. What looks like delay in your life is often that same preparation. The burning bush doesn't appear until the fire within you has learned not to destroy what it's supposed to illuminate. And once that clicks, everything shifts. Because now you can look back at the years that felt like nothing, the years that felt like waiting, like being passed over, like being overlooked, like being invisible to the very people and opportunities you were reaching toward, and see them differently. Those weren't empty years. Those weren't wasted years. Those weren't years where God dropped the thread and lost track of you. Those were years where God was fireproofing you. He was lining the walls of your interior with something that doesn't burn. He was making sure that when the assignment came, and it was always going to come, you wouldn't be consumed by it. You wouldn't be intoxicated by the influence. You wouldn't mistake the platform for the purpose. You wouldn't abuse the authority because you'd learned in that wilderness what authority actually cost and what it was actually for. The people who receive power before they've learned restraint become tyrants. History is full of them. Gifted people, called people, anointed people who got the anointing before the character was built to carry it, and who became the very thing they were called to dismantle. You were being protected from becoming that. And more than that, you were being protected so that the people God is sending you to would be safe in your hands. Because the people in your assignment, the ones who are going to need what only you can give, they are going to come to you in their most vulnerable moments. They are going to bring you the broken pieces of themselves and trust you to handle them with care. And the wilderness you walked through was the training ground for that kind of stewardship. Every year you spent waiting and wondering and wrestling was a year God was teaching you to be worthy of what was coming. But let me challenge you with something now, because this is where it gets uncomfortable, and I need you to stay with me through the discomfort, because on the other side of it is the most significant breakthrough you've been standing at the edge of. You've heard all of this before in some form, maybe not in these exact words, but your spirit knows the territory, the truth of your calling, the reality of your fire, the evidence of your preparation, You've received it before. It has moved you before. And yet, something has still been stuck. Something hasn't moved the way it should. Something keeps looping back to the same place, the same patterns, the same quiet stagnation that you can't fully explain and can't seem to fully escape. And if you're honest with yourself, and I believe you are, because the kind of person who finds this message is exactly the kind of person who has the courage to be honest, you already sense what it is. It's not the enemy, though he is real. It's not your past, though the wounds were real. It's not even the people who tried to bury you, though they were real and they did real damage. The real block has been something quieter and far more personal than any of those things. It's been the agreement you made in silence, without ceremony, without even realizing a contract was being signed, that maybe your fire should stay small, not because you believed it consciously. If you said it out loud to yourself, you would reject it immediately. But somewhere beneath the conscious belief, in the space where survival instincts live, in the place where old wounds still pulse with their original logic somewhere down there, you made a deal. The deal went something like this: if I stay manageable, I stay safe. If I stay approachable, I stay loved. If I keep the peace, I keep the people. And so you made an unspoken covenant with smallness, not out of defeat, but out of love, out of a genuine desire to preserve what mattered to you. And that agreement, as tender as its origins were, has been the real ceiling on your life. Not the opposition from outside, the permission you withdrew from inside. What's coming next will likely surprise you. It always does when we get to this layer. Because beneath that agreement is a belief, and the belief is this: that your full self is too much for the people you love. That if they saw all of you, the full, unedited, undiluted, unapologetic version, the intensity that sees through surfaces, the discernment that reads what isn't being said, the unshakable conviction that settles in you like stone when you know what you know, they would leave, or they would fear you. Or they would look at you the way they look at things they don't know how to categorize. And in that look, you would feel the loneliness you've been working so hard to avoid. And so you've been editing yourself, carefully, skillfully. In conversations, you stop 2 sentences short of what you really want to say. In rooms, you dim just enough to let someone else be the brightest light. In relationships, you give the condensed version, warm, real, genuine, but curated, reduced. You give people the version of you that fits comfortably in their hands without making them feel the weight of what you actually carry. But here's the divine confrontation in this. The people God has assigned to your next season don't need the condensed version. They need the full one. They were built for it. They have been shaped by their own wilderness, their own fire, their own years of becoming, specifically so that when they encounter you, they can hold what you carry without it overwhelming them. They can match your depth. They can receive your intensity. They can look at the unedited version of you and not flinch, because in it, they will recognize something they've been looking for their entire lives. But you will never find each other while you're still hiding. The people assigned to your fullness cannot locate the filtered version of you. The signal you're broadcasting when you're edited is not the frequency they're searching for. Your full self is the beacon. Your full self is what calls them home. And this brings us to something that goes even deeper than the hiding. Because the hiding isn't just about fear of rejection. It's about something far more subtle, far more entrenched, far more spiritually significant. It's about identity, specifically a misplaced identity, an identity that was built by necessity but was never meant to be permanent. For years, and for some of you, for decades, your identity has been quietly, consistently, invisibly constructed around a single role. The one who holds things together, the one who doesn't break, the one who absorbs the impact so others don't have to feel it, the one who walks into a room full of chaos and becomes the calm center, the peacemaker, the steady one. the one everyone can count on to not make it worse. The one who can be trusted with the hardest situations because somehow, you always find a way to carry it. And while that is a gift, a genuine, holy, God-given gift, it has also become a cage. A beautiful cage, maybe. A cage everyone admires from the outside, but a cage nonetheless. Because when your identity is rooted in being the one who holds others together, you stop asking what's holding you together. The question becomes invisible. You stop tending to your own fractures because the work of tending to everyone else's is so constant, so consuming, so central to who you believe yourself to be. You keep showing up strong, present, stable, reliable, while quietly, invisibly, running on reserves that were depleted long ago. And no one questions it because you never let them see the cost. You mastered the performance of wholeness so thoroughly that even the people closest to you don't know you're running on fumes. You made it look effortless. That was part of the design. Keep the peace, maintain the image, protect everyone from the reality of what this is costing you. But effortless is a lie you've been telling for so long it started to feel like truth. And it is time past time to let that lie finally rest. Stay with me, because what comes next is the part that changes everything. Here is what God wants you to hear in this moment, in this specific breath of your life.